Hello and welcome to Monkey Knife Fight Live, folks. I'm Connor Roundtree. We are joined by RotoWire's Nick Whalen. Nick, welcome back to the show. It's going to be a pretty exciting night here on Monkey Knife Fight. Getting into the NFL season. Obviously, it's our first NFL show of the year, and you can see at Monkey Knife Fight Live every Thursday, Friday, and Monday at noon Eastern time to break down all about the NFL picks across the platform. Nick, how are you doing today?
Hey, there we go. Okay, I don't know what happened in the course of the last 15 seconds, but to answer your question, I'm doing well. This is one of the most exciting times of the year. Obviously excited for Cowboys Bucks tonight, but even more excited for, the full slate. What do we got? 14 games on Sunday. It's going to be an awesome one.
Yeah, well, let's just get into some Super Bowl predictions. Obviously, we got the Super Bowl champions taking on America's team tonight. Who do you have coming out of the AFC and who do you have coming out of the NFC? Just to get things off the bat, just to get the fans and everyone spiced up and ready to go.
This is about as chalky as it gets, but Chiefs Bucks, I think, is going to be the most popular matchup that you're going to see, just in terms of picks, probably in terms of betting as well. It just feels like this might be the case for the next few years here. We'll see, how Tom Brady looks this year, but based on the last 21 years, chances are he's going to look pretty good. Tampa is set up, I think, to, as long as Brady can continue to play well, they're set up well virtually everywhere else. The defense is young. They have some up and coming guys who are going to get better over the next 4 or 5 years. The offense, mostly young around Brady, a ton of depth at virtually every position. I do think, a team like Green Bay, which if you look at the odds, 10.5 wins is a number you'll see at a lot of books. That seems low to me. I think Green Bay is going to be a challenger once again, but for as much as I like the Packers roster, for as much as I love Aaron Rodgers, I think it probably plays out very similarly to last year, but I think the Bucs probably look like a better team throughout the regular season because, it's easy to forget, based on the end result, just how shaky that team looked through the first half of last season. And it feels like once they clicked and once everything, was figured out, everybody kind of knew their role and they took off. And there's really no reason to believe that Tampa can't carry that momentum into this season.
Yeah, well, one thing that we've noted on this show before, all 22 starters are returning to that team that won the Super Bowl. First team ever in the Super Bowl era to do that. So Tampa Bay's, they're going to, as you said, they've meshed last season. They're going to have that same team. And then they brought in guys like Giovanni Bernard just to be a third down back, add some experience back there. And then obviously that first round pick on the edge, you have to absolutely love that guy, Joe Tyron Shinoika, or however you pronounce that last name. It's a little different for me, but I'll get on it by week 2. I promise, folks. But no, I think that defense is really going to be stacked. They have a great linebacking core. So I think Tampa Bay is a great pick there. And then Kansas City is my pick out of the AFC. And then you touched on Green Bay, who I wanted to touch on. And just the fact that, guys like Aaron Rodgers are posting Last Dance references on their social media. Devontae Adams is doing the same thing. So it kind of feels like they're really pushing for this Last Dance vibe and going to go all out this season. So if they get off to a good start, I could see the Packers really running through most of the NFC, up into the Bucs, and I think that would be a great game. But if they get off to a shaky start, I think it could be definitely some trouble out there in Green Bay. Now, let's get into some Cowboys and Bucs tonight. We said it. It's America's team taking on the Super Bowl champions, Tom Brady. Oh my goodness, father time is still ticking. I was 5 years old in November of 2000 and November 23rd, 2000, when Tom Brady made his debut. Nick, how old were you?
I was 8 years old at that time, as a July 1992 baby. I was 8 years old. I have very little memory of Tom Brady making his first start. But it's insane that we are in the position that we are now. Not only that he's still playing, but that the end really isn't in sight, right? This is his 22nd NFL season.
Yes, sir.
And if you had to go over under 2.5 more years beyond this year, I don't know what side I would take. He's yet to hit any sort of wall physically. And even if he did, we still see a lot of quarterbacks who hit that wall, like Drew Brees, like Ben Roethlisberger, like Peyton Manning. And even once they hit that, they often play 2 or 3 more years. So I don't know how long this is going to continue.
Well, one thing that I want to note on that too is the fact that his offensive line is one of the best in all of football down there in Tampa Bay. So if he's not going to be getting touched, there's no reason he can't go for over that 2.5-year line that you said. And I think that's something that I really want to focus on in this line in this game. I understand that Dallas has revamped their defense. They've got a much better linebacking core going into the seasons. Micah Parsons, obviously the first round rookie, looked phenomenal during training camp, but he's going up against that that Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line, as I said. And I think Tom Brady, I think he'll be able to go for more than 304 yards in this game. I think he's going to come out and put a stamp on this Super Bowl champion banner, heading to the rafters on the pirate ship, I guess, down there in Tampa Bay. I guess there's not rafters in an open stadium, but hey, you know what I mean. And yeah, I'm going with the more. Nick, how do you see Tom Brady matching up on this matchup here tonight on Thursday Night Football to get the season started?
I think Brady plays well. I think the Bucs offense looks dominant. And I think the narrative coming out of this game is who can slow down a Tampa Bay offense that has Antonio Brown seemingly sane at this point as its number 3 receiver. I mean, this team is going to be, if everyone stays even relatively healthy, I think they're going to be the best offense in the NFL. As far as Brady's line tonight, though, 304.5 on Monkey Knife Fight, I could see it going under just because I think this game is probably going to be a blowout. I mean, Dak Prescott is essentially coming in cold from not really playing in the preseason, obviously dealing with an injury. That was well detailed if you watch Hard Knocks. I think this game probably gets away from Dallas fairly easily, or fairly early, I should say. So I could see Tom Brady having like 4 touchdowns and like 260 yards because a lot of those come in the first half. The Bucs are up something like 24-7 at the half. And then we see a lot of Leonard Fournette, a lot of Ronald Jones, a lot of Gio Bernard in the second half as Tampa Bay just kind of sits on that lead. So I don't really see this as a game where they're asking Tom Brady to throw the ball like 47 times, and where they're still like pushing it down the field into the fourth quarter.
Well, you just touched on Dak Prescott. Now, I just want to pick your brain a little bit and how you think he'll look. I mean, he sat the entire preseason with the shoulder strain, 11 months since suffering that fractured ankle that I never thought he was going to walk again. Well, not actually, but like that was gross. Is he going to be comfy and confident back there against a solid defense? Is he going to hesitate? What do you think you're going to get from Dak Prescott tonight, Nick?
I think Dak will be okay. I mean, I think if you watch Hard Knocks again, and I don't want to base it too much on that, like I don't think he thinks the injury is as serious as the team does. I think if it were up to him, he wouldn't have missed a single rep throughout camp. I think there was some discomfort. He would have happily played through it. So the concern is more with like the shoulder and the arm at this point than it is the ankle. I think he's moved really well. And for as gross as that injury looked, like it's actually, I think, better to have something like that happen as opposed to a torn Achilles or a torn ACL. It was a dislocation, if I remember correctly. It's basically the same injury that happened to Gordon Hayward. And while it looks really, really gruesome and grotesque, I'm full disclosure, I'm not a doctor here, but it was the dislocation and compound fracture of the right ankle. So it's bone. Right.
I think that's the important thing is it's bone, not soft tissue.
Exactly. And I think, you don't want to have either of them, but given the choice, you'd rather have a bone injury. And enough time has passed that's fully healed. So physically, I think Dak Prescott's going to look fine. It's just a matter of like how much has he been able to mesh with these receivers. And outside of Tampa Bay, I think Dallas has a case to have maybe the top 3 receivers in the league. Just in terms of like what those guys bring combined in CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup. So it's not like he doesn't have weapons. Obviously, he has a great running back in Ezekiel Elliott as well. But the fact that this is an 8.5 point spread, that just speaks to, for as much as we like this Dallas offense, they have, as many weapons as just about anyone. It just speaks to what the gap is between Tampa Bay and a team like Dallas that is, maybe not quite a Super Bowl contender, but not that far away. I mean, they're on the fringe. They're in that tier 2, maybe the upper end of tier 3.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that point. And then I think it's going to be a great offensive showing if Dallas can get some confidence moving the ball early. I think the way that they get Dak engaged is some short passes, get his confidence back, get that shoulder feeling good, and then maybe we see some more of those scrambling plays and hopefully open up the offense with Ezekiel Elliott, because we saw last year without Dak Prescott, the one-dimensional Cowboys weren't very good with Andy Dalton. They're a team that almost, instead of using the run game to open up the pass game, they use the pass game to open up the run game. Obviously, we talked about Tampa Bay's defensive front earlier. Barrett's unbelievable. They got Jason Pierre-Paul back there. it's going to be tough to move that ball unless they get into a good rhythm. And I think that good rhythm is going to start with the passing game. So that's why I like more on Dak Prescott's line, because you mentioned it. I think they're going to be chasing this game. I think they're going to be behind, and I think Dak is going to have to be throwing the ball and have to be moving the ball over the air and with an aerial attack for the Cowboys to even be sniffing that 8.5 point spread. Nick, how do you see Dak Prescott going on Monkey Knife Fight tonight?
Yeah, I like your line of thinking. I think I'd go under on Brady, over on Prescott, not necessarily because of how I feel about each player, but more how I feel this game is going to play out. You know, if I think Tampa's going to be up 24-7 at the half and it's going to be running the clock out on the ground in quarters 3 and 4, I think it's going to be the opposite for Dallas, where they're going to have to take some shots. They're going to have to throw the ball. They're going to have to, use as little clock as possible to try to claw back into this game in the second half. So, I think the end result might not be pretty for Dallas. I think I like Tampa to cover that 8.5 point spread, but I think it could be a huge night for Dak just by default. He might have to throw 40 plus times, but that's probably not how they prefer to bring him back. You'd obviously like to ease him back into action, but I don't know that they'll have that luxury.
Well, something that Jason pointed out before we came on air today is that Dak was 0-5 against the spread last year, but he threw for over 400 yards multiple times. And that could be another situation tonight. I think you hit the nail on the head, and I think we got it. I think it's going to be chasing the game more on Prescott, but still, I think that he's going to pressure Brady enough to have to reach that 300-yard pinnacle in the air for myself. So I like the more and the more, but Nick Wayland, that's a good argument for the lesser. I do respect it, but yeah, so I like that we're aligned on the Dak Prescott front. Now we got a couple more or less contests, folks, that we need to take a look at. 5 by 5, more or less. I believe that's 10 times your pay on Monkey Knife Fight, unless it's juiced up. Jason, can you pull that up for us, please? 20 times your buy-in, folks. That's what you like to see. Anyway, getting into it, we just talked about Tom Brady and Dak Prescott. Now we have Amari Cooper. He's one of those top threats and can be one of those top threats in the league. When asked earlier this week if he thinks he's the best receiver in the league, he said, of course he does. He just said he doesn't show enough to do so. I don't think he's going to get the opportunity to show that tonight. I do think 71 yards for Dak Prescott. I think he's going to go more on that. But just with the balance and the fact that Dak has to be throwing the ball in the balance of the backfield, I don't see Cooper necessarily breaking out this season. But as for this game, I like more than 71.5 receiving yards because of the fact I think the Cowboys are going to be chasing the game. Nick, how do you see Amari Cooper's line?
Well, I mean, if we're talking the 5.5 receptions that I see on Monkey Knife Fight, I do like the over there. We think Dak is going to be throwing a ton in this game. And Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb are kind of his 1A and 1B when it comes to receiving those targets. The question is, do they have too many options when you throw Gallup into the mix, where you start to worry about, all 3 of those guys cannibalizing, the other's fantasy value. But when you look at the 4 healthy games that Dak Prescott played at the start of last season before the injury, Amari Cooper had 14, 9, 12, and 16 targets in those games. Dak went over 450 yards in 3 of those 4 games, and Cooper had at least 6 receptions in all 4. So he's kind of been the guy for Dak, and maybe CeeDee Lamb does eat into Amari Cooper's target share a little bit this season. I think that would be expected, but I mean, if you look at how comfortable Dak Prescott was throwing to Amari Cooper last year, albeit in an abbreviated sample size, I think that carries over. I think Amari Cooper is still the guy that he trusts most.
Well, the line currently on Monkey Knife Fight, they changed it from receptions to yards. What do you like? Do you think he goes for more than the 71.5 yards? Based on what you just analyzed, I would say yes.
I would say so. Yeah, I mean, if he's catching 6 or 7 balls, then yeah, for sure. And certainly if he's catching more than 7 balls, you would think it's almost a lock. I mean, he went over that total in all 4 of Dak's healthy games last year. A couple of those games came against good defenses, the Rams, Seattle, even Cleveland, not a bad defense, a lot of playmakers on that side. So, you do worry about this Tampa defense. For as much as we've talked about how talented the offense is, the defense is right there as well. But it can't be discounted that this is a very talented Cowboys offense. Certainly they've underachieved for the better part of the last 25 years. But this is a really loaded offense that, I mean, they're 28, 29 NFL teams would probably prefer to have the Cowboys skill players over their own.
Oh, for sure. They're amazing. And that's just, you're speaking to the point that we've been beaten to death, the fact that they're going to be playing catch up in this game. And I like Amari Cooper for more than that. But then one of those talented players in skill position that we haven't really touched on yet is Ezekiel Elliott. Now he's taking on the number one rush defense in the NFL from last season in a game that we both think that he's going to be chasing in. I like the less than 62.5 yards just because I think they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. And I just don't see him being able to break off those big yards, especially against a team like Tampa Bay that has all 11 starters back on defense, that drafted another edge rusher in the first round. They're going to be stacked up. I think they're going to be fired up and they're going to be ready to go at home. And I have less on Ezekiel Elliott, 62.5 yards. Nick Whalen, RotoWire's finest. How do you see it?
I think I'm with you there. I love Zeke. It was a lot of fun when he was kind of at the top of the list in terms of NFL running backs, and obviously
when he was jumping in the bucket, the Salvation Army.
The Salvation Army, right? Exactly. And it's been it's been a bit of a fall off since then. But against this defense, it's just really tough, especially as we keep going back to the game script, how we think this is going to play out. If and when Dallas is down in this game, I don't think we're going to be pounding Ezekiel Elliott up the middle for most of the third and fourth quarters. I think they're going to do what they can. Like every NFL team always tries to establish the run early on. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes you're just forced to abandon it. If it's not working, you just can't keep, putting yourself in these like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 situations. And I think that's what's going to happen early to Dallas. I think they're not going to want to put too much on Dak. I think they're going to want to, really get Ezekiel Elliott going. But like you said, Connor, I think this Tampa Bay defense is going to be ready for it. I think that's what they want. Like they'll happily just let you plunge Ezekiel Elliott into Ndamukong Suh and see what happens.
Or Jason Pierre-Paul, or Shaq Barrett, or Devin, like any one of those guys.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be advantageous for Zeke. I'll go under with you.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining me on the last two. I appreciate it. Now we move over to one of Tom Brady's. We're going less on Ezekiel Elliott just because, one, the game script, two, Tampa Bay number one rushing defense, revamped defense, all 11 starters back. They're going to be pretty darn good, and they're going to be rolling guys in and out. And now we're just getting into the Godwin breakdown right now. 4.5 receptions. For me, I think it's going to be less than 4.5 receptions because of the script. But I think that when he does get a reception, it's going to be a big shot. I think that he could get a lot of yards. Like he has been Brady's deep shot before Antonio Brown. Now Antonio Brown's. I can't believe the depth. You mentioned it before. The depth at this receiving corps is just incredible. But as far as the reception line goes, 5 receptions is a lot. When I think that they're going to be using the running backs, when I think that Tom Brady will be opening up the playbook early. So I think he'll get a lot of yards, but few receptions. So I'm going less on the reception line for Chris Godwin. Nick Whalen, how do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many options here when you look at this Tampa Bay receiving core. I mean, not only Evans, Godwin, Brown, who we've touched on, but like even their 5th receiver, Tyler Johnson, like I really like a lot. Like he was an awesome college receiver.
Scotty Miller's great too.
Scotty Miller, right? Both of those guys, Johnson and Miller, made some huge plays in the postseason in that NFC title game against Green Bay. I mean, and we talk about teams wanting the Cowboys skill position players, but I mean this is a just preposterously deep receiving core.
Well, and then you look
even touched on
the tight ends. There you go. Right. We didn't even talk about the tight ends and how comfortable Brady is with those guys.
Exactly. Their 3rd tight end, Cameron Brate, and a lot of people have loved him the last few years in fantasy. Obviously he's kind of buried now, but the depth that they have is unbelievable. I mean, there's so many teams in the league where it's like, man, if they lose this guy, they're in big trouble. Like other than Brady, there's not like a single guy in this offense where Tampa Bay could lose them and you're like, well, they're not going to win the Super Bowl now. Like they could legitimately lose Mike Evans and you'd still be like, well, this is like a top 7 or top 5 receiving core, even without Mike Evans. It's absolutely unbelievable. But anyway, to focus it back on Godwin, I'll go the other way. I'll go over. I really, really like Chris Godwin a ton. I think he's just like that kind of almost like running back build in a receiver where, he can catch, he can bully guys after the catch. He can run through guys. I mean, he is a complete receiver at his size. And the only concern is that, the Tampa Bay spreads it around too much and like everybody has 4 catches. But I think Godwin is the guy that can go deep, that, you could throw him a quick out. You could throw him something behind the line of scrimmage, trying to get him going.
A little wide receiver screen.
Right. Exactly. So I will go over on that number for Chris Godwin, 4.5.
Taking the more on the reception line, folks. Okay, well, there they are. There's your picks for Thursday night football. It is the season kickoff 5x5. Make sure you scroll down, select your buy-in, hit submit, and you're in to win. $5 will get you in to win $100. And don't you just love the sound of that? Moving on now to a rapid fire contest. Let's put the guys in the ring and put them toe to toe. Tom Brady versus Dak Prescott. Amari Cooper versus Chris Godwin. Oh, well, they changed it on us. We're now doing a running back battle. And we'll start with the quarterbacks, though, Nick, because that was consistent with what we were looking at before. And Tom Brady versus Dak Prescott. I have to take Dak Prescott with the 14.5 yards. I think he's going to be throwing the ball a lot. I think he's going to need to throw the ball a lot. That's the game script that we have both put in motion. If we were Shakespearean writers, it looks like it's going to be a tragic night for the Cowboys on the scoreboard, but it could be a pretty good one for Dak Prescott. So I like Dak in that matchup. Nick, any points on there?
No, I feel like we've covered this one pretty thoroughly at this point. I think combination of game script and the fact that Dak Prescott, even when healthy last season, aired it out a ton. I think Cowboys are going to be playing in a hole for most of this game. Pretty easy for me to go Dak on this one.
Now on the other side of the football, it's the running backs. It's Ezekiel Elliott and Ronald Jones. And now if we know Dak's going to be throwing the ball a lot because we think he's going to be leading, well, that could lead to a lot of touches for Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. Now, that's the one thing that bugs me about that backfield. They even brought in Giovanni Bernard. He's going to be their third down back in passing situations, though. So running the ball will really be Fournette and Rojo. Ronald Jones with the 12.5 edge. I have to hit it because, as I said in the last one, I don't think Zeke is going to be effective moving the football. Just that simple. It's not a disrespect to Ezekiel Elliott. It is a compliment to the Tampa Bay defense. The fact that they've been able to keep those 11 guys together and then improve upon that with that first round pick, pardon me. Nick, how do you see that going?
I mean, this one is tough because Tampa doesn't really have a true number one back.
Exactly.
So, I think in terms of yardage, like even though I don't think Zeke's going to have a big night, I do think that he probably is the leading rusher in this game just because we have, like you said, Bernard added to this backfield in Tampa Bay. You still have Fournette. You still have Jones. I thought Fournette pretty clearly emerged as the guy, the number one guy for them in the postseason. But I think they're happy to use a 3-back system during the regular season, not wear any of these guys out. And then, as you see in the NBA, kind of shrink the rotation when you get to the playoffs. But it's the NFL. You don't want to have just one guy anymore. This isn't 2003 where every team seemingly had a guy who would just get you 1,500 yards. It's backs by committee, and I think that's what we're going to see from Tampa Bay.
All right, folks. Well, there's the pick. Nick Whalen, RotoWire's finest, is riding with Ezekiel Elliott in the running back matchup. I just think Ronald Jones with plus 12.5 yards. Even with the committee carries, I think if he gets 50 yards plus the 12.5, that could break whatever Zeke may muster up, because I don't think Zeke will get the 60. Folks, head down, hit submit, and you're in to win. It is almost time for kickoff. Nick Whalen, any final notes before we let you go, man? It's kickoff. Are you fired up? Because I'm fired up, if you couldn't tell.
Could not be more fired up. I would go as far as to say I'm jacked up. You can see my Jack Del Rio Jaguars t-shirt here.
Boom.
Going to be
this is
t-shirt time.
The people tune in specifically to see which Jaguars t-shirt. Also, a shout out to one of the YouTube commenters who was so ecstatic that you made a Toby Gerhart reference. He subscribed to the channel. So
love that.
That's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about. I'm running out of Jag shirts though. I think I only have like 2 left that I haven't worn on one of these streams before.
Well, I'll make sure to make up a Trevor Lawrence shirt and send it to your way. I'm rocking the Fields of Dreams, Justin Fields. I know he's not starting this week, but in our dreams, he will be, because guess what? The Bears don't have a shot without him. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to Monkey Knife Fight Live to get the NFL season started. That is Nick Whalen from RotoWire. Make sure you follow along at Whalen with a 1 in there instead of an L, and head over to rotowire.com for all things you need for fantasy football analysis. Folks, I'm Connor Roundtree. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for more NFL talk at noon, and remember to hit it hard.